Kal Kadosh, Boker Or, Bekiim Bahalacha, day 53. Page 165, Halacha, Dalit. If a congregation began reciting Kaddish or Kiddusha, or any other Dvarim should be Kiddusha, that we just listed in Halacha, number 1. And then some people walk out. So this is a problem now, which means that, right, all of a sudden somebody walks out. Yeah? So before they finish. So many people may continue reciting the prayer, although there are no longer 10 men present. Meaning the concept is as long as you started beheter, you're allowed to finish. This is halacha as long as at least 6 people, which is the majority of the minyan, they remain there. Okay, the above applies when the congregation explicitly lost the minyan after they started the prayer, but if they already are aware of it before beginning the prayer, right, then obviously it's not going to help. Okay, they may not begin, right, any of the prayers that require a minyan. 312, counting a newcomer. Rabbi Akiva discussed a case where only 5 people remained from the original minyan, but another person was called in to count as the 6th man. He suggested that the congregation may not continue to say the prayer as long as they were reduced to the 5 people. They were no longer a valid congregation to recite it. The 6th person's entry cannot restore the original license to recite this prayer, although there were 10 people present when they began the prayer. Rabbi Akiva did not come to a conclusion regarding the question. Fine. You understood what happened? Meaning like this. You have 10 people. We start Kaddish. Right? We're here. Okay. 4 people left. In the middle of the Kaddish, we could still finish the Kaddish because we still have 6. What happens now? 5 people left. We're left with 5.
You can still finish the Kaddish even though you're only 6?
Yes. Yeah, 1 second. 5 people leave, now we're 5. We know that we need 6. I call somebody, come in. We bring him in. By bringing this guy in, now we're 6 again. But no. Why? Because it could be that since he's a newcomer, we lost a license. The license is that if you have 10 and you started with 10, as long as you left with 6, you could continue. Right? Again, finishing that Kaddish or Kiddusha, we're not talking about everything. Meaning if it's a new entity afterwards, no. So for example, right, let's say you had 10 by Amidah. Now if the Chazara, you don't have 10, no. Because the Chazara is a new Dvarim Shebikdusha. If you started the Bikakonim is new, you know, meaning that there's something which is called a new Dvarim Shebikdusha. That Dvarim Shebikdusha you could finish. You understand? Because you already started it, so you can finish. But it's not something new. Yes, the lesson in the middle.
Just before the beginning of the Kaddish?
No, nothing. Okay?
If one leaves and you're 9.
Also, nada.
Can't you do
Nope. Okay? Somebody wanted to say that Kaddish Lit Kabbalah is still like it's a continuation of the beginning. But according to Sfaradim, we hold no. According to Sfaradim, the second that you lost it, you can't even do Kaddish Lit Kabbalah. Okay? Halacha number 5. If a congregation began a prayer, a revolving congregation, says the footnote, the Piskei Teshuvot cited the Eshel Avraham of Butchach, right? That he says, ruling that in a case where some people exited the minyan, leaving 6 in the synagogue, but then new people came and brought the number back to 10, and then 4 more of the original exited and were replaced by then, he will that since the minyan was never entirely disbanded, then the 10 people who are now present may continue the prayer that was started. Meaning, what happens is revolving. That yes does work. Why? Because they had 10 again. You understand? So then, as long as they had 10, that's fine. Here we're talking about that you had 10, it became 5, and then you bring one back. No, that doesn't work. Okay? Halacha number 5. If a congregation began a prayer that requires a minyan, and then some people went out, so only 9 remained.
You didn't finish the above applies on the congregation. You did?
So if a congregation began the prayer that requires a minyan, and then some people went out, so that those 9 people that remained, they may not begin any subsequent prayers that require minyan. For example, if he said Kaddish and Barichu, right, and they're in the middle of Shema, and some people went out, now he cannot do the repetition of the Amidah. Although this is also part of the Shachrit, we cannot consider this case to be one where the sacred prayer had been begun, and therefore it could be continued without a minyan. In fact, even if there were 10 men present when they began the silent Amidah, but then somebody went out, they cannot recite the repetition of the Amidah. Okay, if the cantor began the repetition of the minyan, right, that means Chazarat Hashatz, and people went out, so therefore he may continue to the end of the repetition. This is even if they went out before he completed the first bracha, and the remaining members of the congregation can join him to recite Kiddusha. But Kiddusha is still part of the same thing. So therefore he could say, that means as long as he started Chazara, you could finish Chazara. No, Kiddusha is the same. 1 second. If the Shulchan Aruch states that if there are not at least 9 people listening attentively to the cantor's repetition, to Chazarat Hashatz, it might be Bracha Levatala. Right? So therefore he comes and he says, the Kavach Sofer says, that despite the dire warning, it is all right for the cantor to finish, right, until the end of the Midah. In this case, he has a permission to begin the repetition, and now he has no choice but to continue to the end. Okay, nevertheless, that's what I just told you now, the Kohanim may not do Birkat Kohanim. Meaning the Kedusha is part of Chazarat Hashatz. Birkat Kohanim is not part of Chazarat Hashatz. It's a new entity. So you cannot do Birkat Kohanim. Right? The Kohanim's blessing is considered a separate prayer, and they may not begin it since there are less than 10 people present. Instead, the cantor should recite the passage of Elokeinu v'Kaveh Barachenu B'Bracha. That passage is considered part of the repetition of Amidah, and therefore he may recite it even though there's no Minyan. 3:14, the Talmud Yerushalmi states that if the Kohanim began administering their blessing to the congregation and then people left, they can continue, right? And even though there's no Minyan. The Pri Megadim says that once the Kohanim have recited their own blessing, right, then they are considered to be begun, and therefore they can continue. If it is Monday or Thursday, the remaining members of the congregation may not take out the Sefer Torah. The Torah reading is considered a separate part, which is not connected to Chazarat Hashatz. So taking out the Sefer Torah, you need a new 10. Number 7, according to the Ramah, this is what we spoke about Kaddish Kabal. That's what I told you before. Machloket Maran v'Ramah. According to the Ramah, once the Shliach Tzibur began the repetition of the Midah, if he completes it while there's no longer Minyan, he may also say the half Kaddish, right before Asher U'Aletzion, and Kaddish Kabal. Why? Because these are part of the repetition of the Amidah. That's what he can do. And therefore, right, the dispensation, the complete repetition, despite the absence of Minyan, includes the reciting of the Kaddish. Ashkenazic Jews follow this ruling in practice. According to Maran, also the Shulchan Aruch, however, the Shliach Tzibur may only complete a repetition of the Amidah by itself, including Kiddusha. But he cannot do the Kaddish afterwards, neither the half Kaddish or Kaddish Kabal, because they're not part of the repetition of the Amidah, although they are connected to it. This is a practice of the Sephardim. 3:15. Shulchan Aruch says specifically that the Shliach Tzibur cannot say Kaddish Kabal, but it does not mention anything about the half Kaddish, which comes before. Now the Mishnah Berurah states that according to the Ramah, the Shliach Tzibur may recite the Kaddish of Kabal and certainly have Kaddish. One might assume, based on this hierarchy, right, that although Maran ruled that the Chazan cannot say Kaddish Kabal, he would agree that he could say the half Kaddish. Nevertheless, no, the Acharonim did not differentiate, ruling simply that the cantor may not recite the Kaddish at all. The Kaf HaChaim also cited the Rambam's response on Shuta Rambam, brought in the Bet Yosef, stated plainly that Kaddish is not part of the repetition. The Halacha Berurah likewise states that only Ashkenazic Jews have the practice of permitting it, of the half Kaddish, but not the Sfaradim. Last Halacha 8. The same issue applies to the Selichot prayers recited during high holiday season. If the congregation began Selichot with a Minyan, but some people went in the middle, according to Ashkenazic practice, the cantor can say Kaddish Kabbalah at the end of Selichot, but he cannot do it according to the Sfaradim. Have a wonderful day.